is something that is inevitably on my mind at all times. I believe the foundation of the strongest businesses have the strongest capability of recruiting the best talent to fit their current roles. I'm interested today in having a conversation around how you recruit the best talent out there and how you use services, tools, and all of the things available to an entrepreneur today to be able to access that best talent. Tiffany, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Matt, how you doing?
I am amazing. I'm amazing today.
Good.
I just recorded a podcast the other day with a young lady who was talking to me about, man, just the power of speaking positivity into an existence. And I've always been a firm believer in that that those people, and I'm sure you met them, Tiffany, and I know a little bit enough about you to know this is not you, but those people where you're like, they're always having a bad day, and they always are like talking about their bad day. And inevitably, they never stop having bad days, to where one of the things that my wife rolls her eyes at me at is every morning I wake up, this is me. I wake up, we already talked about this, you beat me to the gym every morning, but every morning I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I bounce out of bed. I'm excited to attack the day. I'm happy. I am motivated, and nothing's going to stop me from having a fantastic day that day. And I wake up every day with that same mindset. But it's something natural within me. Tiffany, is that something you naturally have?
No, not even close. Okay. No, who you described about I am always a bad luck and I always have a bad day. That's the old me. That's really how I was as a teenager, early 20s, and even into my probably early 30s. I struggled with that. I'm naturally pessimistic. I'm naturally skeptical. So it's something that I had to overcome to be successful. And it takes, I think, maturity and time and sometimes experience. If you don't have that just natural willingness to have a clear and positive mindset, and until I think you experience it working, at least for me, I needed to see it. And it's funny. I used to talk to a lot of my employees. We used to do training, not just on technical stuff, but like mindset. And somebody asked me once, I get it. You always, everybody says, have a positive mindset, have a positive mindset. How do you do that? And I'm an ops person, so I make a process for everything. Yeah. So for me, it's affirmations. It's what is going well. Write it down, put it in your face, talk to a friend about it. So I started doing that and realizing all the good stuff, burying the bad, and eventually it becomes habit. And eventually you see the results. And then it sticks.
You know what I prescribe to my team, Tiffany? And I'm the same way. I'm a very process, structure, strategy, execution type of person. And the thing, I worked for this company, that was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and they had brought in a mindset coach. And I looked at that and I rolled my eyes like, I don't need that. I'm a self-motivated person, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they required us to do, and I did it, which was 4 Gs. And what the 4 Gs every single day was, you write down 10 things you're grateful for, something that you have grace with. You write down your goals, like physically handwrite your goals every single day, and then you find something of growth that you're going to add into your repertoire every day. And I tell you that, Tiffany, the number one game changer for me was that, not the goal side. I've always been good at setting goals and accomplishing goals. But the number one thing that really changed my perspective on a lot, and more than it's helped me, it's helped so many people around me, which is that thinking in a way of gratitude. And waking up every day and having to write down 10 things you're grateful for is not easy. It sounds easy because when you do it at first, it's very surface level. But when you have to do it every single day and you commit to doing it for 90 days, you have to start getting a little deeper than that surface. And then a lot of times my employees, after like 2 weeks, were like, man, I'm struggling coming up with 10. I'm sitting down at my desk for an hour trying to think of 10 things I'm grateful for, 10 unique things for today I'm grateful for. And I said, let me give you this advice. Instead of waiting until the morning, think about it all day long. And then what that does, it unlocks the ability for you to look at, oh my God, it's -0. I can now be grateful for those warm, sunny
That's
days.
great.
I can
Yeah.
find the things to be optimistic about, the gratefulness. Even in the bad things, I can find the positive side of it. That's really worked well for me.
I love
You
that.
mentioned affirmations, though. Like, I think of affirmations, but maybe I don't even really know what affirmations mean. Help me understand. What is, like, if
Yeah.
I was going to dedicate to affirmations, what would I do?
I think it's very similar to what you're saying. I'm really just trying to give myself that list of gratefulness. I think I would compare the two as being the same.
Okay, cool. Now, one of the other things that came across my table the other day, and I know this works, but I've committed that for the month of February, I'm going to do this as much as possible. And I haven't yet put a number on it because I just don't know if I can execute a number. But going out of my way to give somebody an unnecessary compliment that doesn't hurt me but only builds them. I met with a guy last week who met with me, and he sat down and he was just like, at the end, he was like, man, you're this, you're that, you're this. He was just so openly willing to give me kudos. And as men, we tend to not do that with each other very much. It's a little bit more of a masculine thing where we kind of hold back those types of things. And then I also remember a time when I went into a job interview with this job I wanted, and I met with the president of the company. And at the end, he did this one small thing, Tiffany. He said, we were done with the interview. We were kind of wrapping up the interview. And you know, you like kind of get your papers together and you're kind of trying to figure out how to get off the Zoom call. And it's always that like awkward leaving.
Right.
He's shuffling around. He's like, man, that was amazing. Oh my gosh, he's so awesome. He didn't say it to me. He said it under his breath to himself.
Interesting.
But I digested it. I heard.
Yeah.
And man, for the next week, my chest was so puffed up. I was feeling so good about myself.
I bet.
And I almost want to go. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you the answer to this question. I'm going to reach back out to him this week and say, I remember this of our first interaction. Was that intentional or was that just a passing
Oh, I'd love to know that. Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, as a person who's done a lot of recruiting, that was in a recruiting area, but also, you know, we talk about setting the mindset of people and having people have good days. It costs nothing to give those out.
It's funny because we used to have, again, a process in my old company. And this came from the two co-founders that I worked for almost 2 decades. And they, as we got bigger, it was harder for them to keep in touch with every single employee. So they had, they shared this article, and I can't exactly quote the article. I'll have to find it and send it to you, but we had a process called Move a Penny. And it's basically about this guy who, just a very short story about this guy who wants to do that. He has 5 pennies in his left pocket, and by the end of the day, he wants to move all the pennies to his right pocket. And every time he compliments somebody, he gets to move a penny. It was an intentional act of, you know, making somebody feel good. So we used to have Move a Penny, which was, I recognized something in one of my team that, you know, I would pass on to my leaders, and then they would call and recognize them for that. Hey, and it was always something very specific. It wasn't, you know, necessarily like an overall, like, oh, you're doing a great job. It was, hey, I heard you did X and you did an amazing job, you know, following through on it. And it was such a good, positive process. We had a very high accountability, and we were sales and recruiting and, you know, we were producers. So you had to, the stakes were high every day. So to have that positivity reinforced always helped kind of ease the metrics part of everything. So I absolutely love that and believe in it, that you have to, if you can't remember to do it, you have to work it in and again, make it some sort of part of your everyday routine, because it makes such a huge difference in everybody.
I mean, you always hear of that, like Christmas time, like, do you like to get gifts more or give gifts more? And almost everybody says, I like to give out a perfect gift. man, giving out something like that. I mean, like one of my favorite ones to do is to identify like a kid who doesn't look very self-confident, like out in public, right? And then to be like, oh my gosh, I love those shoes. And just to see his energy change just because some random guy said, I really like those shoes that you're wearing. I think that outfit, that, like those little things, like, and not to like over importance anybody here, but like those things can change the direction of somebody's life, something that small.
Absolutely. You know, and we used to do that in recruiting too. That was my rapport build, was a compliment in the very beginning, because immediately it gets their guard down. Immediately they feel like on more of a positive track and comfortable and confident. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, people, when they feel liked, they want to do people want to do business with people who like them, like who feel, when you feel special, when you feel valued. Like you don't want to always, like, I think too many managers make the mistake of like high pressure, always on your ass. Those reps aren't going to work harder than the reps who are working to continually get compliments. I mean, I think about this a lot as, you know, obviously I lead a team of sailors within my company. I also am the leader of my household, and I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. And I think about all of those things and how those things matter, and how every interaction with those kids matter, and how you need to shape their mindset, their perspective, their confidence. And so I really go out of my way to be able to just speak those things out there. Now, you mentioned about kind of the approach you would do that in recruiting. It's a very interesting part where I'm at within my business. I've got, over the past couple of weeks, I've had quite a few new major opportunities come across my plate for my business, which is fantastic and exciting. And it's exactly to the plan I had, because I think for a lot of the audience who listens, everybody knows that at the end of November, I made a really, really tough decision to shut down the equivalence of 90% of my income and revenue for my business. And over the past 3 months, I've been operating in a pretty decent deficit in anticipation and planning of what I'm in the process of building. And so last week I got an offer on Thursday for a consulting deal, another offer on Wednesday, and then another offer on Friday. All three were like, if I got one of them in January, I would have been hyped, but I got 3 of them basically in a 4-day span. And so now it's the maneuvering of all of these moving pieces. And one of the big things that I'm really, really focused on right now, which is reassessing the internal team I have today, and then saying, with these new opportunities, how can I add to my bottom line with somebody who doesn't necessarily believe in, I don't believe in hiring people with these massive experience and paying these huge salaries. I believe in kind of selling the idea of a partnership, of congruency, of being a part of something. Have you ever done recruiting for a company like that, that's not just trying to say, here's this big salary and this big title, but like, here's the opportunity to grow?
You know, I wish I could say I had more of those, because those would have been a lot more fun to recruit for. That's how we used to recruit internally for our company. And that's how I'm recruiting for my company now. Unfortunately, you know, it's few and far between. And I think the years have changed too. I think there is a shift in people understanding that it's not all about skills. It's not all about what's on paper. Like, they're seeing that a cultural fit and a work ethic is, you know, trumps anything that you could learn in a classroom. But yeah, the years that I spent recruiting, it was very strict. It was, you know, these are the requirements and we want to see an exact match. And that's what we had to look at first. And that's not how we did it internally, because we knew that there was so much more. And I think coachability is probably the biggest thing. And somebody that wants to do well and wants to be a part of something. So I always really kind of question those environments when we recruited for them. Yeah. And it just feel like, you know, we're just checking these boxes. And if they show up in a nice outfit, oh, they'll probably get the job. I do wish I could say that I had more of those companies. that I recruited for, but yeah, it's not often, unfortunately.
I don't get it, but look, I'm a guy who comes from a sales background. I don't believe in paying people large, exorbitant salaries. I am comfortable in taking on a role where my performance aligns with my pay. I believe that people that work for me in all departments, even administrative roles, I have my team. There's every employee that works for me. Half of their money comes from a salary. The other half of it comes from deliverables and performance-based metrics. I believe that's where people are motivated by. I also, when I have people manage a percentage of my, like a department of my business, I give them profit share off of that. I make sure that they're feeling like they're a part of the business, not just working in the business. And all of those things are what I built. But at the end of the day, it's interesting because so many people say they're attracted to that, but then they're not when it comes down to reality.
That's true. Yeah, they can't put their money where their mouth is, because it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And that's really what they can't deliver. They don't want to put the effort in. They'd rather have a base salary and punch a clock. Although you're right, they'll never admit it.
Well, so I've got ways to ask. I mean, my favorite interview question to ask people, and especially people that I question if they check that box, is let's just say that the OTE of a role that I'm hiring for is $100,000. And I'd say, okay, let me give you two scenarios. One, I give you a $30,000 salary, and when and if you kill all of your goals and objectives, you're going to make over $150,000 a year. Second scenario is I give you an $80,000 salary. No matter how well you do, you'll never make more than $100,000. Which one's more attractive to you?
What does the majority say?
Well, if they answer the second answer, they're not for me. I'll tell you that.
Right. Yeah. At least they're honest.
Yeah. I mean, because I'll throw them through a loop. They're like, wait, $30,000? My last job, I was getting paid $60,000. So I give them a job where I know I'm overpaying them on the salary compared to their normalcy. But then that question, the question comes is like a good follow-up to that without answering it is, what percentage of your employees are attaining quota? What percentage of the likelihood of a average to top performer are hitting those numbers? And how many people do you have hitting the numbers that would have me making $150,000 a year? And if they ask those questions, they're at least willing to at least know if performance-based incentives align with the outcome of actually getting that number. But if they just very quickly say $80,000, $100,000, that's somebody who's not motivated by their own outcome, in my mind.
Yeah. I agree with that method too. We did that, like you said, in all different departments. Actually, I did. I'm not sure if our whole company. At one point, I was managing the majority of our corporate teams, and that's where I wanted to incentivize people to make a even better living. And you always want your goals to be aligned. So we should all be working towards the same thing. So what we would do was, figure out what are the company goals, and all right, well, how does our customer service team align with that? There's always something. That you can put on paper and work towards. And that helps you develop people too. And that's really ultimately what they want, aside from the monetary reward, is people want to feel valued and like they're gaining something for their career too.
I can tell you
the good ones.
I'm motivated by three things, but on paper I'm motivated. But if I look back, there's an actual fourth overall thing that would point back to every successful thing I've done. Number one thing I'm motivated by is competition. Okay. I'm a competitive person, came from a sports background, so where I can compete, and you can put me in an environment where it's me versus you, Tiffany. Tiffany, no offense, I'm burying you. I'm putting my foot on your throat at every aspect.
All right, let's go.
Right? And I love it when people feel the same way, and they love it when people talk shit too. That's like, I love it.
Yeah.
Number two is I'm motivated by growth. And so there was a point in my career, early in my career, where I was doing that growth myself, where it was like, how many promotions can I get in the next year? How many additional responsibilities or opportunities can I be added? And I would step over a pay raise to get some additional responsibility or an additional title, or to be able to make my resume more attractive. And then number 3 is and a lot of people aren't willing to admit it, I want to win, and when I win, I want to hold the trophy in the air and celebrate that. I want to.
Yeah.
If they gave a gold medal, I would wear that gold medal every single day to every single meeting to make sure everybody knew I was first place, and I will brag about it. Now, for every part of my career where I've had the biggest jumps when I was in the corporate world is when I felt like I was a part of something. Where it was a movement, and I was an integral piece in that movement. Not just a person at a company, but I was a part of a movement. How does a company create a culture like that? Tiffany, I'm sure you're trying to figure out how to do that within your own company now, right? But how do you create that?
You know, I think you have to, I think the leaders have to start it and have to live it. I worked for a huge corporation prior to my last employer. And it's funny because they both follow the same book, Good to Great. Good classic.
Okay.
Old scenarios, but still really solid. And the one company tried to implement it, I don't know, 50 years into being operational, and they had 15,000 employees. The other one started at inception and lived it, talked about it. You know, there's 6 philosophy, major philosophies that, a great business has that good businesses don't have. And I think the difference is you have to figure out as a leader, what are those philosophies for you? Then you have to find people that either agree with you or that you can coach into agreeing with you. Maybe they don't know yet. But you are the one that has to demonstrate it and live it every day. And I think that's the huge difference is, these two companies, one, just kind of threw it in the middle of things and, talked about the philosophies, but there was no leadership, executive leadership that was adapting it themselves and, really following through. The other thing is too, is, one of them is getting the right people on the bus and getting the wrong people off the bus, right? We talked about it daily. You're holding somebody back from a good opportunity if you're keeping them on your team and they're not working out. They're also dragging your team down. So it's just an example of how we not only talked about it, but we lived it. And we would have this discussion of, all right, this person probably shouldn't be on the bus with us.
Right.
They should be on another bus in another seat. So I think it's tough when you've got businesses that try to rebrand their culture when they're so large, got to do it from the very beginning, and you can adapt and you can evolve, but you have to have a baseline, a foundation of these, really important things to your business, whether it comes from a book or whether it just comes from your values. I can't stand companies that just have these values on their website and they're cliche and, it's put in onboarding and that's that. One of mine is like, accountability and transparency. And on my website, it says, because we don't have time for bullshit.
Right.
That's, that's what you get with me. So, and you got to find people that are okay with that too. That's the other side of it.
Yeah. I've seen it go right and wrong in both sides. I've seen the culture to be founded by the founder and to be driven by the founder. But the problem is when that company scales so big, the founder can't be the culture driver because they're not touching everybody in the business. And I've seen it to where then they'll bring in a leader of a department who doesn't embody that same culture. And now the culture of that department is followed by the culture of the leader of that department.
Yeah.
And I've seen a company who's had a shitty culture from the top, but they bring in a culture focused leader, and all of a sudden you create that. That's one of the things at the company that I really kind of made my career in. When I took over my team, we created a like us against the world culture, and it was like us versus everybody else.
Yeah.
And we even, so like the first time I showed up to a national conference, we had at this point about 25 salespeople, and me and my 5 employees, I had shirts made up for us. So it was like, it was my region, and I had 4 other regions. All the regions had 5 people in there. And my team, we showed up with shirts that says, I got 99 problems, but our pitch is not one. And it was
That's
orange.
great.
We were an alignment. We walked in together, and we were like, kind of, if we could have done some sort of like walk in there, like we had that culture. We were like, fuck y'all, we're dominating. Like, and we did. And everybody looked at us with like a side eye because we made them look bad. And we're like, hey, only way to beat us is come to our level, because we're not dropping ourselves to yours. But we had to create that culture. You know what I mean? And so it's a daily thing that I think about inside of my own business. Now, Tiffany, let's just walk the audience through kind of what you're going through right now. You were in a more corporate recruiting role for many years. You decided you wanted to make a change. Let's talk a little bit about what the change is, what you're doing today.
Yeah. Well, so talk about transparency. I mean, I worked for a company for 17 years, and new ownership came in and fired all the execs. So I wanted to make a change, kind of had to make the change, but it was good timing because, you know, when you've got 2 different cultures clashing, it's just never going to work out. So it was, I think, the best. But I had always had in the back of my mind, you know, if this doesn't work out, what is my next step? And I didn't necessarily want to get my resume together and, you know, be on the other side again, because, you know, I wanted my own. I thought I was ready to build my own, but I didn't necessarily want to build a recruiting company. Felt like I did that. So I saw a gap in the market. And you know, one of the things that we always struggled with in staffing was trying to find companies that were using staffing. There's just not a lot of good resources out there. There's really no resources out there that'll tell you that, you know? I mean, your ICP, you're looking for leaders in a specific, you know, you're not going to go talk to, you know, a cashier at the Walmart. Like, that's not, you know, who your target is. Well, for us in staffing, we don't know the difference between that cashier and the leader. There's no label on them. So it's very difficult. The prospecting process is very slow. And I always thought if somebody could master that, if somebody could give us, you know, a list of just staffing users and the decision makers, like that would be golden. Our teams were out pounding the pavement and literally knocking on doors. Do you use staffing? Do you use staffing? And getting thrown out of half of them. So you have 6-figure business people running their own businesses that are wasting so much time. So as this, you know, next step approached for me, I started doing some research and thought, I think that this is a gap that I can close. And so I'm building now what I always wanted as a COO. I wanted, you know, a better way to prospect, a better way to find staffing users. And so my software is doing that. I have, of course, we're using AI, you have to, but I also have a whole team that are pounding the phones and asking the same questions that a salesperson would be asking. And we're putting it all into one system. We're kind of like housing it's a one-stop shop for all company information you'd want to see, plus the decision maker information, where they go to, you know, college, so you can make a warm introduction. It's still being built. It's about 6 months in. Building a tech company is a lot different than landing a job order and making a placement, which I probably could have done in 3 weeks, but it is, it's exciting. It's been really good reception too. And nobody's doing it. I can tell you why. Because it's really freaking hard. It's really hard to do.
Is there a way to patent the idea?
I don't know, but if we're still experimenting on some ways to compare and contrast information. So we'll see. I'm sure there is once I find that sweet spot, and I will.
To be clear, is the way I understand what I heard is your audience is you're trying to identify a company who would hire a staffing agency to help them with staffing. So you're trying to at least identify that, and then are you then creating some sort of database that then staffing companies will come to you? It's like, so who will be your customer ultimately once you have the database? Will it be the staffing companies or will it be both? Okay.
It will just be staffing. We're exclusive to staffing because that's really where there's no resource, There's all these, I separate myself from lead gen at this point because I'm really giving a staffing company a workable prospect list, a ready to go. It's already been scrubbed, scraped, verified, information's accurate. Here you go. Is it thousands and thousands? No, it's maybe 50.
Right. But
go work them. Verifiable. They're users, they're decision makers. You're going to call and if you're good enough, you'll get a meeting. I'm not taking responsibility for your sales, but I can get you the people.
Okay. Because I was wondering if the companies themselves that then use staffing would also have a value to say, here's our list of preferred staffing agencies that if you want to go staffing, that you can then do lead gen for those companies, to have you like maybe your own database as well, to say like, when I'm reaching out, to say, do you use staffing? Yes. Who do you use? What do you use? Scale of 1 to 10, how happy are them? Would you consider using an alternative? If I had a friend that I know that fits that box, would you be open for me to, making that connection? I didn't know if there's a value on that side too, or
Yeah, potentially. I think it's definitely going to evolve as we nail down what people are actually looking for and what's going to work in those conversations too.
What percentage of companies out there use staffing agencies? I can think of only one company I've worked in where I was a part of the hiring decisions that we use an outside company. Is it a pretty frequent thing?
It is. I would say, and I don't have the exact number because everything depends, right? Sure, some will use one a year, some will use, 1,000. So it's definitely more than half of the companies that I would say have more than 20 employees. A smaller organization really isn't going to use, but doesn't mean that they won't. So it's also a very fluctuating business. Like you've come across a business that doesn't have a copy machine, they're probably never going to have a copy machine. Yeah. But you come across a business that doesn't use staffing, that could change in 6 months. So it's always
used it
that too. Yeah. So we're recalling, we're just continuing to revisit all of these companies.
And my lack of seeing it is probably just due to the industry in which, or the segment in which I worked. Is there certain industries that it's like so super common, like manufacturing, like, like certain places where it's like super common, and then like maybe in tech it's far less common unless you're dealing with like executive level recruiting searches? I mean,
It's so funny because it really is common in so many industries, but where you'll see volume, I think, which is what you're asking, is on manufacturing, is on warehouse, call centers, really utilize staffing services a ton. But there's hundreds of thousands of IT staffing companies too, and a lot of times they do like higher level. Most of the time, those are more perm placements. But it's everywhere. You got executive search firms that are only doing C-level. I mean, they're everywhere. And then you have seasonal. So
I didn't think about that. A lot of the staffing is temp work, right?
No, not necessarily. Temp to hire is a nice, like, that's what we've specialized in. It was such a great, like, sweet spot, I would say, because the employee could try out, the employer could try out, and then if things went well, they went perm. But for those couple of months, they were on our payroll. So we took the unemployment, we took the, and honestly, that's the better way to go, because most employees, most candidates want a long-term. So temp, I think is, it's still frequent, but I think a lot of it out there is temp to hire.
If you were to start a recruiting company, would you at this point focus on quantity or quality? As in, I would imagine that I'd focus more on the executive searches, because if at least I understand them, it's a percentage of the salary. One placement pays a lot more than doing 10, 15 entry-level style placements. But I'm sure that there's a value in both. What would you focus on?
I would always focus on quality, but I would absolutely consider quantity, but quality would be first and foremost. I always wanted to make a long-term match for my clients, whether it be an entry-level position that was, starting pay rate, although of course up to, the higher level, direct hire placements. But that, was never interested in a revolving door of just replacing and replacing. That's what you get when you focus on quantity. And I just had first of all, why do you want to do the same job all the time, just replacing? Like, I'm not making anything new off of this, So yeah, it would always be for me quality. And I think that goes a long way with your clients too in staffing.
And if you were to start a recruiting agency, which once again, I know you're not doing, there's a reason why I'm asking this.
No,
would you start with having a really good candidate pool that you would then try to market to companies, or would you go find companies and then attempt to fill the placement with candidates?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think for me, what I would do is I would start more on the perm side. So I would probably I would probably get the job order first, and then go find the candidate. Because if you're in a perm side, you can't have a pool of candidates on like an executive search, because it's just too much of a specific skill set and personality fit that they're looking for. Now, if I knew I was only going to go after call center business, I might be stirring up a pool of candidates in a certain area. I was actually talking to a staffing company the other day, because they're a startup too, and they're ramping. They've kind of like you just landed some big deals, and they're like, we have 1,000 jobs we have to fill. We don't know where to start. And so they did the job thing first, and it's all quantity. So now they're trying to come up with this pool of candidates, and it's possible you can do it. But if I was going after a certain industry that was high volume, I'd probably get some fake job posting, not fake, but like, hey, some jobs are coming up in call center, give us a call type of thing.
My original business idea when I left corporate world was, Spinwheel Sales Academy was my original job. That was my original business, right? And the reason why I started that is because I really loved to train and hire people who had no sales experience. I saw a gap in the market where I'd see all these young high school kids that were talented, but they just college wasn't for them. That was me. When I left high school, college was not on my path, right? But it didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with my career. And you'd see all these kids like me always tend to like look at the trades, or they'd be like electrician, plumbing, those types of things, right? And I'm like, why does people not teach sales as a trade? I believe it is a marketable, actionable trade. So I went in, I started Spinwheel Sales Academy. At first, I offered my training for free. Nobody took it seriously because they had no investment in. So then what I did is I readjusted the process, and I said, hey, I am going to charge you $500 to take the training course. When you complete the training course, my commitment is I will help you get a job at a company and land your first SDR role. And then I would do is I would then convince the company who hired you from my training program to pay me the recruiting services of somebody I hired, I trained, I developed, and provided to them, and they would give me the money that you paid, and I will give it back to you when I get you placed.
Huh. Nice. I like it.
So it's like, it's no risk, assuming you do what it takes to help you get placed.
Right.
That's what eventually evolved into my sales consulting business, because I ended up placing a couple of people. Those people worked out well. Those companies wanted to hire me. I'm like, I'm not for sale, but if you want me to help you train and develop and teach you how to hire, training people, and that's ultimately how I grew what I grew. And I asked the second question around go find people first or the companies first, because I got a buddy of mine who we're in automotive. I've been in automotive for the past 15 years. That's a big part of my background. So we know automotive. We know this industry. And he was like, hey, I just am connected with so many people. He was like, do you think that we should just like go find companies? I'm like, well, if we know people that you think would be a good fit, like a good assistant general manager that's ready to be a general manager, let's go shop him to stores in his area and say, hey, would you want to talk to this guy? So I'm thinking go get the talent for the specifically known industry and then shop the talent to places for them. But I didn't know if if that was a better way to go.
No, that's I mean, obviously, if you have somebody that you know is a fit, and especially that cultural fit, we used to call that sell a skill. We would SaaS. We would have SaaS Tuesdays. You had to bring a candidate but we knew the client. So if you know the client and you know the person and you know it's a match, all day long.
Yeah. All right, so let's shift, because I know we're kind of coming on our 40 minutes here so far, and Tiffany, I could talk with you for days.
That went fast. Yeah.
I know. It's like kind of like the Joe Rogan podcast at the end of the 3 hours. Like, that was 3 hours?
Right.
So you got a new business. We talked about you got reps out there pounding the phones right now. You are in the process of building a software company, not a staffing company. Your background's in staffing. It's a whole new world for you. What is the thing you've been most optimistically surprised about that journey, and what is the thing that, from a negative perspective, not trying to take you back to the negative younger version of you, but what is something that you didn't expect that's not necessarily going the way you thought it would?
Oof. Okay. So the first one was positive, right? Like what's going really well. I think one of the scariest things was, are people actually going to want this software? Okay. And as I started getting myself out and networking and actually having sales meetings, it's an overwhelming positive response. And that shocked me. Okay. I've been asking people, give me constructive, give me negative, give me anything bad. And I'm just not hearing it. Now, our product's not launched yet. I'm sure we'll have some hiccups. There always is. You have to anticipate that. But as far as the concept goes, so far, so good. And I have people that are telling me, call me when you're ready and let's visit this. So I think I'll make some sales, in the next couple of months, which is awesome. I was really nervous about getting meetings and getting appointments and, and I just get introduction after introduction after introduction. And it's been, that part's been amazing.
I don't know if you agree, but
it is 100%.
Okay.
Don't tell a recruiter that though.
It's why I gave you that caveat. I don't know if you would agree, but I think recruiting is sales. I did collections for the first 8 years of my professional life, and I think that's sales as well. A different type of sales. But was that sales skills that you learned in recruiting, it just translated pretty quickly to the business, or are you just a natural sales person and you believe in something that people buy it?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I did get into sales somewhat when I got into the more corporate side, and I was managing, leading regions. I was out, in the field. So I had that exposure, but it is so transferable. There's just a different confidence level, I think, because people, recruiters don't think that they're salespeople, and that's all it is. Especially in the last 5 years, I think we've had no harder a sale than getting a candidate to a job. The tides are turning a little bit back to the employer where the employer has the upper hand, but man, the candidates have just been ruling the market for years. And our recruiters, all recruiters have had the toughest job. So now, yeah, they could sell anything at this point. But I think that, yeah, for the, as far as like where things go for me right now, that's been so positive. And yeah, I probably have more skills than I'm realizing, so maybe some of that is why.
Do you think there's just like a negative, and I think there is, but do you think there's just like a negative stigma around what it means to be called a salesperson? And that's why like recruiters reject it?
Yeah,
like it's kind
probably.
of like I'm not a salesperson, I'm a recruiter. It's like a higher status.
I'm sure there's some of that. Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. And I think too is like, I don't know, sales, you think about, you have to go call a stranger, and like you're doing that. You're doing the same thing. Yeah.
Just packaged in a different way. All right. So from a negative perspective, what's something you thought was going to be easier, but as you get into it, like it's just been more of a challenge? Not that you failed at it, but it's just been more of a challenge than you anticipated.
Building the software. I was warned. I was warned over and over. I still am. People are still telling me it's going to take longer. It's going to take longer. And I'm like, we're going to get it done. I get it. I get shit done. No, it's very slow. And my sense of urgency and a tech builds, is on two completely different universes. I drive my guys insane. I know I do. Because I'm like, I don't understand why you can't do it, why that can't be done today. And they're like, because it's thousands and thousands of code, days worth of code that we have to build. Okay. So that has been very challenging.
I tried to create a voice AI service to kind of duplicate what we were doing on the real estate side of our business. We put a lot of time, a lot of money into it, more money than we did our own time, but we decided to pull the plug on it. We just found it was not worth our investment. To where I've come to the conclusion of, and this is a part of I'm moving the direction my business in, which is I'd rather just find companies who already like have that part mastered, but then they don't know how to do the revenue side, right? They have a great product, they know how to deliver, they know how to build, they know how to develop, but they don't have the revenue. And then I have a revenue process team ready to go, but I don't really know how to develop. So what about this is kind of where we're going with it. There's a lot of different ways to build a business. It sounds like you're bootstrapping everything, which I think is the best way to go up front, assuming you can take care of the straps on your boot, right? Like as long as you can fund the cost of what it takes to build what you're building. But the other thing I would ask is to you your goal, as of right now where you stand in your business today, is your goal to ultimately get funding, to ultimately look at an acquisition, or is this a business you're building that you plan to run for the next 20 or 30 years, or maybe both?
I think it's both, but not for a long time. I have a, you got to put your goals down. So I have a 6-year goal of actually making an acquisition, and then a 10 to 12-year goal of selling. So, but right now I just want to be the market leader. I want to get trust from the field and trust in the industry and build a really solid product. And I don't know, ultimately, will a lead gen company buy me, or will a staffing company buy me? Because that's possible too.
Makes sense.
But for right now, I want to have, want to build something scalable and have a lot of fun the next decade or so, and then retire young, right? Isn't that the ultimate dream? Isn't that what we're all?
Nope.
And then I'll go back to work somewhere.
Retire young, but I don't know if I ever want to retire. Like I can't imagine the idea. Like I love playing golf. I'm actually going to play golf Thursday. But like I want to be able to have the financial ability to retire at a certain age, but I don't want to actually retire because I actually enjoy and love what I do. Now, So one other question for you around that is, let's say a large amount of money came across your plate to help you build and accelerate the development of this business, what's the first or the main role you would hire for to help you make jumps towards those 6 and 12-year goal?
Great question. Probably a CRO, because I think, you really need an operator and you really need a revenue driver. And to scale, to have somebody with their eye on nothing but sales strategy and then nothing but business strategy. It's tough to do both.
It is.
It's tough to do both.
Like I said, I meet with clients all the time where you have the founder who really, Tiffany, should be the CEO.
Yes.
But because they have to wear so many hats, they never can be the CEO. And just by learning how to bring in the right people to be able to cover the things they do, to allow them to maybe run a department, but ultimately be the CEO, is really where I see people unlock that kind of next step of growth. Last question for me, and I see this happen often. I think one of the big advantages I've had as an entrepreneur over these past 3 years is that I am very quick and instinctive with my decisions. I have a lot of just gut instincts that I follow. I don't take the time to build out these like extravagant, sat down for 3 months and made the perfect plan. And so then I'm almost paralyzed by the perfect plan. And you see some of these people who will like have that paralysis of analysis where they are just overanalyzing, overthinking, like this, but they never move to the execution part.
Yeah.
Do you lean more towards I really want a perfect plan and then deliver that plan the way I built it? Or you lean more towards let me just get going and we'll figure it out where we go?
So I've always said that I am not in any way smarter than my competition. I'm just fucking faster.
Okay.
And that's it. And it's just, I'm just faster. You had by the time, I think it's Elon Musk or somebody that said by the time my competitor has planned and executed and rolled out, I've made 27 mistakes and have now formulated the perfect product because I snapped my fingers. I just did it faster.
I love, and the common thing I see from some of the most effective entrepreneurs are that, and I think that so many people make that mistake of, I've got to make the perfect plan and the perfect this, and the business plan has to be this. And what I always see from those people is they're so afraid to make an adjustment. And to your point, they're scared to make that mistake that they can ultimately learn from. I shared with you when I created my business, I had one idea. That business has changed, I think, 6 times in the past 3 years in regards to where I'm focusing on. And that leads me to kind of the final point. One of the things that I saw in the market, just based off of one of the things I did for myself, which is this podcast, we created a marketing and a podcast process that we first did it just to solve an internal problem. When we saw so much value for ourselves, we made a product and a service for that. And that is one thing that we are actually in the process of working with you on. So Tiffany, I understand you've got a podcast that we're going to be recording the first couple of episodes in the coming weeks, or I think 2 this week, right?
Yeah.
And we're releasing the first episode when? Do we have a release date yet?
We don't have it. No, you tell me. I'm ready.
I think that we need to record probably 3 to 5 total and then establish that release date. So by the time you guys are watching this, I'm confident that the release date is within the next week of whenever you're watching this.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
So
I think we have 5 on the books.
We do already have 5 on the books?
I think so. I think so.
Then
4 or 5 at least.
Today is the February 3rd when we're recording this. We will be recording. We will be releasing your first episode not next week, but the week after that. Whatever day you decide you want to release it. I don't know if you want to do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, but we typically want to do a 3-day warm-up of notice and then get going. So we'll release this episode will come out the Friday before your first episode, so people can watch this.
Beautiful.
And you guys can jump right over to your podcast. Tell us a little bit more about your podcast as we leave here, Tiffany.
Yeah. Well, who do I resonate the best with? And that's staffing people. I've just been around them for so long. They were my competitors and now they're my potential customers. The most underrated industry, I think, out there and leaders out there, because so many of these leaders are gritty, are down to earth, have had to make the craziest decisions, have had to work the craziest of hours, and they really, truly care. They're not all like that, but the majority, so many of them are. And I want to kind of like our conversation here. I just want to have a raw, real conversation with these execs, these owners, these CEOs, learn about them, and let's do it in a way that's out of line, which is what my podcast is called. I don't want it to be scripted. I don't want it to, I don't want to be reading off at anything I don't want to prepare. I just want to hear these people's stories. And they've got great stories. They all do. They've got good backgrounds. They've got they're so unique. And I just think it's another gap, an untapped area. You see a lot of leadership podcasts, but nothing focuses on the staffing girls and guys that have just been through so much and are so gritty and interesting. So that's who we're going to be bringing on, and I've got 5 lined up so far and more to come.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see it myself, watch it. I know I've already kind of been somebody who's followed some of your social media over the past couple of weeks and some of the content and clips you put out there. So hopefully this continues to add that process out. Tiffany, I really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to continuing to watch you as a friend and see your business grow. And obviously, wherever I can help, don't hesitate to ask. For all of you guys that are watching, obviously like, share, comment, engage with the content as much as possible. Help us get it in front of as many people as possible so we can help as many people as possible. Tiffany, once again, thank you for your time today. And for everybody else,
Great. Thanks, Matt.